Good morning, everyone. It's really great to be here. I know that I'm standing between you and lunch, but I promise that it'll be your time worth it. Let's start with something simple. Imagine you go to a restaurant with a group of friends. You order something small. Someone else orders the most expensive item on the menu. And at the end, the bill is split equally. It doesn't feel quite right. And in many cases, this is exactly how cost allocation worked across some of our SaaS and data portfolios, in data platforms, sorry. My name is Minelvino. I'm from Brazil, and I lead global infrastructure and operations at Gerdau. In my role, I'm responsible for SaaS, cloud, SAP infrastructure, and FinOps. And today, I want to share with you how we evolved FinOps at Gerdau beyond public cloud to unify SaaS and data platforms with automated allocation and unit economics at scale. Let's start with the challenge. Most organizations start FinOps in public cloud, and we were no different. You get visibility, cost control, and a structured allocation model. But tech costs don't stop at public cloud. A significant part of the spend sits in SaaS and data platforms. FinOps starts in public cloud. Then we hit the next layer, spend that was not yet covered. This brings limited visibility and alignment. And naturally, it pushes toward evolution. And this is exactly the context we were operating in. Before we go deeper, let me give you some context about Gerdau. We are a 125 Brazilian steel company with a strong industrial footprint across multiple countries and a very large and complex operation. But more importantly, we are a company deeply connected to sustainability and circular economy, as one of the largest recyclers in Latin America. And all this scale and complexity is powered by technology, which makes cost control a critical capability for us. Technology touches every step of our value chain, from raw materials to production, logistics, and delivery. And as this landscape expands across cloud, data center, SaaS, and licensing, managing costs and consumption becomes increasingly complex. And that's exactly what we start to experience. So we need to evolve how we manage technology costs. And that's when our FinOps journey begins. Before I get into the solution, I want to step back and explain the journey. What we built didn't happen overnight. It's the result of a few years evolving how we approach FinOps. Like most organizations, we didn't start with a complex model. We started with cost visibility, running our first optimization cycles. Then we introduced FinOps term, bringing structure and accountability into the process. We moved into framework adoption and started building a more consistent model. By 2023, we had a structured maturity approach with clear assessments and action plans. But in 2024, something changed. As we scaled, gaps started to appear, especially in SaaS and data platforms, where the allocation model was not consistent yet. And that's what led us to evolve FinOps into a more integrated and operational discipline. So the journey here was not about fixing a broken model. It was about extending it, because part of the landscape was still outside. And when we look at what was outside the model, this is what we found. Before Cloud Plus, this was our starting point. First, fragmented cost sources. SaaS and data platforms were simply outside the allocation model. For example, Kafka, where the cost allocation were based on number of topics without any visibility into actual consumption. Allocation rules were not consistent. Each team and platform had a different logic, sometimes even equal splits across teams, regardless of how much they actually use it. The process was highly manual, with a lot of reconciliation at the end of the month. And because everything was interconnected, running the same process twice could lead into different results, bringing us a credibility gap. And at that point, we had a decision to make. We could either keep managing all this complexity manually or fundamentally change how we approach FinOps. And we chose to change it. But that decision had very clear drivers. It wasn't just about improving efficiency. It was about scaling accountability. At the beginning, cost visibility was enough. But as we grew, it was no longer sufficient. We needed each team to clearly understand what they were consuming and to be able to act on it. And to make that happen, three things became critical: scale transparency, providing actionable views, and enforce real governance. And together, these three elements define what we call our Cloud Plus operating model. A model where allocation is no longer manual, but fully allocated end-to-end. Where every platform follows a consistent allocation logic, and where cost is not just reported, but continually connected to accountability. But once we start to implement this, we realize something important. Cloud Plus is not just about extending FinOps. It only works if a few fundamentals are in place. First, single taxonomy. We needed one consistent way to structure costs across cloud, SaaS, and data platforms. That's what creates alignment across teams. Second, right metric per platform. Each platform behaves differently, so the allocation needs to reflect how it actually consumes. That's what builds trust in the numbers. Third, shared costs. They need to be clearly defined, repeatable, and auditable. That's what removes friction in the conversation. And finally, cross-functional adoption. You're going to hear me talking about this topic many times at this session. Finance and engineering need to run the model together. And together, these elements enabled us to apply Cloud Plus in different platforms. So let me give you now some concrete examples. 4, in fact. We choose to start this Cloud Plus journey in 4 platforms of our SaaS and data portfolio, because these were the areas where the majority of costs outside the allocation model were concentrated, and where we saw the biggest opportunity to improve accountability and visibility. And they are OpenShift, Kafka, MongoDB, and Databricks. But to make this work in practice, we focused on 3 key capabilities. Integration. We integrated SaaS and data platforms data into our FinOps platform, that is Peer Cloud. Second, scale. We extend the model beyond public cloud, bringing SaaS and platform costs into the same structure, so visibility becomes consistent and actionable. And financial. We integrated Peer Cloud with SAP Ariba, turning cost allocation into an automated end-to-end process instead of manual monthly effort. So now let's start with OpenShift. In OpenShift, the challenge was clear. It's a shared environment used by multiple teams at the same time. So the key question was, how do we allocate costs fairly? We started with a simple approach, using namespaces as the allocation metric, which gave us a first level of visibility. But very quickly, we realized that wasn't enough, because many namespaces were shared, so the level of granularity was still limited. So we needed to go deeper, and that's when we introduced tagging at the pod level, giving us a much more granular view of consumption. From there, allocation became much more precise, combining namespaces and the allocation tags to identify ownership. Shared costs were no longer ignored. They were explicitly identified and distributed with variable proportional allocation. And governance became continuous, with untagged workloads automatically generate backlog for the teams. And the result is full cost visibility per project with an auditable and sustainable allocation model. Let's now talk about architecture. At a high level, this is how it works. We start from OpenShift environment, where workloads and infrastructure generate both usage and metadata. This data is enriched with allocation tags. From there, everything flows through an API directing to our FinOps environment. Now moving from architecture to visibility. Here, there's a video you can see. Fully costs allocated by project, with a clear breakdown of how each team is consuming the platform. This is all based in the logic we just discussed, namespaces combining with allocation tags. So this gives a much more clear and traceable view of the costs. And this is just one platform, but the real challenge is that each platform behaves differently, so we needed to adapt the model to each one. And Kafka is a great example of that, because here the challenge was not shared infrastructure, but how to measure usage correctly. So initially, we took a simple approach, using number of topics as the allocation metric, which seemed reasonable at first, but quickly showed its limitations. because topics can have completely different volume and throughput. For example, a team with 2 high-volume topics could end up paying the same per topic as a team with 2 low-volume topics, which is clear not fair. So we evolved the model, moving from topic count to actual usage volumetry, measuring message volume and throughput per topic cluster. So now, teams see the true share of Kafka cost based on how they actually use the platform. With an allocation logic they can understand and trust. So this is how it works in practice. We start from Kafka, capturing usage metrics like volume and throughput. Here, we don't have a native API. So we have to expose all this data into our observability layer. From there, we process and prepare the data set to reflect action consumption per topic. And then, this data set is integrated into our observability layer. This is what allows the model to be both accurate and defensible. Here, you can see Kafka cost, fully allocated based on real consumption. Each project is receiving cost based on its actual usage. And you can see a breakdown by project and their respective share of total usage. Talking about now the third one, MongoDB. In MongoDB, the challenge was correlation, how we connect cost with real database usage metrics. Initially, cost allocation was very simplistic, typically split equally across teams, which doesn't reflect how the database is actually used. So we evolved the model, combining billing data with real database consumption metrics like reads, writes, and storage to calculate a proportional share per project. So now, cost reflects actual usage. Projects with heavier workloads pay more. Talking about architecture. To make this work, we had to combine more than one data source. So we started with 2 types of data, capturing billing data from MongoDB and usage metrics from the database itself. These data are then combined to calculate usage proportions per project based on reads, writes, and storage. And this iterated data set is integrated into our FinOps environment. One more video. Here, you can see MongoDB fully allocated by project using real database usage metrics. Each project receives a proportional share based on how they really use the database. Let me show you now a real business case where improved cost visibility led to measurable reduction. For this specific project, once the team could see the MongoDB costs based on real consumption. They could apply target optimizations like backup optimization, index optimization, and no production pauses, scheduled pauses. And the result is a cost reduction around 42% compared to the initial baseline. And the last one, Databricks. Databricks brings a different kind of challenge because it's already consumption-based. Databricks is building DBUs, and prices vary significantly by service type, like jobs, SQL warehouses, ML, and interactive clusters. Each one have different rates and discount models. So we evolved the model. We map DBU consumption per project and apply service-level pricing, not a flat rate, reflecting how each service is actually priced. And the result now is full cost visibility based on DBU consumption. And here, the last time I'll talk about architecture. The challenge here is not collecting data, but make sense of it, because we had to collect data from multiple sources, like cost, pricing, usage, and workspace context. So the key here is the transformation layer, where we join and we structure all this data to reflect how consumption actually happens. And only then we integrate it into our FinOps environment. The last video, the view from Databricks consumption based on DBU applying service-level pricing. And here, on Databricks session, is where we're going to talk about unit economics. Because DBUs alone don't explain value. The same amount of DBUs can support completely different types of workloads. And each one generates values in a different way. So instead of only looking at DBU consumption, we start to link it into actual business outputs, like cost per pipeline run, cost per model trained, and cost per query served. Now, cost is not just a number. It becomes a signal to understand usage, prioritize workloads, and make better decisions. Here, I brought another business case where this better visibility led to target optimizations and cost reduction. Here, for this project, after the team saw the cost views based on Cloud Plus model, they could find inefficiencies like idle clusters and jobs running at the wrong time. And the result is a cost reduction of around 49% compared to the initial baseline. And up to this point, we were dealing with a fragmented reality, different tools, different allocation logic, a lot of reconciliation at the end of the month. And now, this is what reality looks like. Instead of stitching things together, we have a consistent way to consolidate everything. And that's when the full picture comes together. What we're seeing here is a view of a project with all types of costs concentrated in one place. Shared costs, enterprise support, data ingestion, MongoDB, Rosa, Kafka, everything in just one place. From a fragmented reality to a unified view of technology costs. But making it work wasn't enough. It had to work at scale. Today, this model supports around 300 initiatives, each one with the same allocation approach. This starts with a consistent allocation logic, using the same approach across all of them. Scale is not just about logic, it's about ownership. Finance and engineering work together on design decisions, taxonomy, and monthly close. To make this working, governance is built into the process. Every time a workload is not compliant, it automatically generates backlogs for the team. And finally, segmented views. Each team has its own cost views, by product, by project, or by initiative, with the level of detail they need to act. And these are not isolated improvements. They reinforce each other. And as part of that, Chargeback becomes a natural extension of the model. This is how the process comes together in practice. We start by collecting data from multiple platforms and applying the same allocation logic here. So the cost is distributed correctly into the projects. From there, data flows into our financial system, SAP Ariba, where it's validated, classified, and assigned to the appropriate cost centers. And this runs in a consistent and structured way, without manual reconciliation or offline adjustments. So what used to be a disconnected process now runs end-to-end by the model, from fragmented cost now to automated chargeback. And beyond the model itself, we also saw very concrete gains in how FinOps operates. A big part of the gain came from automation. What used to be manual work, allocation, conciliation, reconciliation, now is handled end-to-end by the model, which significantly reduces the time required to run our entire FinOps cycle. And along the way, we also learned some important things. Starting with outcomes. What this actually enabled for us. Expanded scope. We moved beyond public cloud into Cloud Plus, bring SaaS and data platforms without losing governance or consistency. Higher trust, because now we have clear allocation logic and auditable rules, we reduce the disputes and increase confidence in our data. Value decisions. Cost now is connected to real consumption signals, so teams can optimize based on value. And finally, as we saw, automated chargeback. Chargeback became automated as soon as the invoices are received. They are distributed with the appropriated cost centers. And cases like this didn't happen by chance. They are the result of a few principles that we learned along the way. First, metric quality. Without the right technical metric, allocation becomes noise, and teams simply don't trust the numbers. Shared costs. If the roles are not explicit and auditable, they will be challenged. Governance. Dashboards alone don't sustain FinOps. Standards and automations are what keep the model credible over time. And the last one, and again, cross-functional ownership. FinOps only works when finance and engineering run it together. So our focus now is expanding Cloud Plus coverage, starting with GitLab, where governance is already in place. And the next step is bring Chargeback to license consumption. For Microsoft 365, we are evolving from static licensing, tracking, to consumption-based visibility and allocation. And in Datadog, the goal is to enable allocation automation, similar to what we build to the other platforms. But beyond individual platforms, the goal is clear, is to operate Cloud Plus at scale, with full visibility, consumption-based governance, and cross-platform automation. And that's how we approach Cloud Plus at Gerdau, not as a cost initiative, but as a way to connect technology costs to better business decisions. Thank you.
Huge thank you there to Tai from Gerdau. I think that was one of the most practical, in-depth talks I've heard, and especially speaking from a second language, that was amazing. So we're going to open up for a few questions. We've got a bit of time. Thijs, would you like to pick to save me, make people unhappy? There you go. Can you catch?
Hi, Thais. First thing, and congratulations on this whole. It's not easy. Can you tell us one biggest challenge that you faced throughout this journey, please?
Yes. I think that for most of the companies, the biggest challenge is culture. Here at Gerdau, we have a lot of technical metrics and a tool that help us all the time, as you could see, but culture is the biggest challenge. So we start since the beginning, since 2020, like you saw on our journey, we start to doing some events talking about culture, like our FinOps Day that we have every year, and our FinOps News, that's like a journal that we send to everybody with like POs, talking about what is FinOps, what is Chargeback, what is Showback, and especially talking about accountability. And things now are happening. Like you can see, accountability is increasing over time. So it's the biggest challenge, but we are facing it, okay? Thank you.
Brilliant. Who would you like to pick next?
Oh my God, a lot of things. There, please.
Over there? Yeah. Can you catch? You ready?
Yeah, great presentation, and thank you for bringing up MongoDB Atlas as well in the sea of Databricks and Snowflake. But I had a question about how you handle data engineering teams who work with the MongoDB Atlas product and understand the nuances of having a cost optimization effort, right, where they have to balance the performance and availability with the high costs of running a production MongoDB Atlas. Can you name a few areas where you gained the maximum amount of cost optimization? Was it on the storage layer in Atlas? Was it on the compute layer, or was it on your workload, right? Like, you have like those long-running MQLs or aggregation pipelines. Where did you see the maximum benefit?
It's for MongoDB Atlas?
Yes.
Yes, the biggest opportunities when we saw in index optimization.
Okay.
That's the highest effort that we put. And also, some of the teams were with no production environments running all the time. So we had to pause it, like in weekends and overnight. But index optimization, backup optimization, revisiting the policy was the biggest opportunity to cut costs in MongoDB Atlas.
And were you using a tool for that, or for the query visibility and optimization?
Yes, the tool, the dashboard that
From Pure
I
Cloud?
showed here.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Who's next?
Can be the man there.
Yeah.
He had already
Ready?
raised hands.
So thank you. Very elaborate presentation. I had a couple of questions. Were you always chargeback model, or there was Showback and you went to chargeback later on, or you guys always had a chargeback model for your public cloud costs?
If it's a chargeback model, yes, it's a chargeback.
So it was always
were you
chargeback,
always
or?
yeah, he
Sorry?
said, were you always a chargeback model, or did you move from Showback to chargeback with
Yes,
maturity?
from Showback first to chargeback. We start crawling, then we move it from Showback to chargeback. First, like I showed here, we used to have the Showback, and all the allocation and chargeback was manually. So now it's totally automated with this integration between our platform and SAP, the SAP Ariba. The purchase requests, the PRs are created automatically by a robot.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Who's next? Yes.
I think it's the last, or I have more questions? It's the last one? No. No.
We'll do two more questions.
Okay.
Two more.
So I just wanted to know, you mentioned how you're optimizing and saving by turning off certain subsets and servers during off hours. Are there any tips that you can provide regarding other ways to optimize and save money? Because right now my company is actually right-sizing, and they're doing instance scheduling, shutting things down on weekends to try and keep down consumption. Are there any other avenues that you took?
Yes. I think as long as we start to getting more mature on optimization, we start to saw challenges on this. And now Gerdau, my company, is looking to re-architecture of the applications, because we don't have much more optimizations to do in right sizing or no production environments running all the time. We are revisiting the architecture to rebuild the platforms and the applications to cut costs now, at this time. For example, in MongoDB, we had an application there with not a shared environment. It was only for that application. So we moved it to a shared environment, so we cut costs in more than 80% of MongoDB, because it was not necessary anymore a dedicated cluster to that application. Okay? And we just saw this and these opportunities after we could divide and understand in detail the MongoDB Atlas costs. Okay?
Brilliant. So we've got time for one more question. Who's got them?
There.
Over there? Yep. Are you ready?
So on that chargeback, how do you deal with missing tags or incorrect value in the tags?
Over the month, we have a job that automatically generates backlog for the FinOps team to understand that untagged new workload, so you can understand who deployed and to tag correctly, so the chargeback can run in the end of the month without any problem. It's a daily job that we have to understand where is the untagged resources and treat this before the chargeback job run. Okay?
Brilliant.
That's okay?
Yes. Could I get another big round of applause for Ty, please?
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. Thanks for watching. Check out the rest of our channel for more FinOps content. Like, subscribe, and leave questions and comments for our speakers. We appreciate your support.